The Walt Disney Company was founded in 1923 as a cartoon studio. It was a joint venture of Walt Disney and his brother Roy. 3 years later, the company had produced two movies and purchased a studio in Hollywood, California. Pitfalls in distribution rights nearly had Walt Disney close the studio, but the creation of Mickey Mouse ultimately saved the company. The Walt Disney Company was incorporated in 1995. Today, it is a diversified international family entertainment and media enterprise with five business segments: media networks, parks and resorts, studio entertainment, consumer products, and interactive media. The media networks is mainly classified as cable networks and broadcasting. It includes television production operations, television distribution, domestic television stations, and radio networks and stations. Parks and Resorts is the segment that conceives, builds, and manages the company's theme parks and holiday resorts, as well as a variety of additional family-oriented leisure enterprises such as the Disney Cruise Line. Studio Entertainment produces and acquires live-action and animated motion pictures for worldwide distribution to the home entertainment and television markets. Consumer Products segment licenses trade names, characters, visual and literary properties to various manufacturers, retailers, show promoters, and publishers throughout the world. This segment also engages in retail and online distribution of products through the Disney Store and disneystore.com. It also publishes entertainment and educational books and magazines and comic books for children and families. The interactive media segment creates and delivers Disney-branded entertainment across interactive media platforms, particularly through gaming and online platforms. Disney Interactive Games creates and distributes console, handheld, online, and mobile games worldwide based on Disney-created features. Attendance around the Christmas and New Year's holidays is the highest of the year at both Disneyland and Walt Disney World. Christmas is typically one of the busiest days of the year for the theme parks. Disneyland was temporarily closed on Christmas afternoon last year. Anaheim Disneyland stopped admitting new guests for about 90 minutes because of overcrowding. Overcrowding has become a major challenge for the parks to maintain the high-quality, fun-for-all type atmosphere that Walt Disney envisioned. These days, the experience is somewhat less than ideal. Although Disneyland does not disclose the annual attendance numbers, ACOM, a private Los Angeles engineering firm, has shown that attendance has been increasing every year since 2004. It's estimated that a typical day at Disneyland will have around 44,000 guests in attendance. According to Mouse Wait, which is an app that estimates wait times for rides and daily attendance for the parks, the wait time for popular attractions will rise to over 60 minutes during peak hours. The same wait can also be expected from restaurants. Many of the negative reviews of Walt Disney World or Disneyland at sites like Yelp and TripAdvisor, people complain nearly as often about the parks being overcrowded as they do about them being overpriced. Maddening crowds and long lines can make the park visitors miserable. The challenge of overcrowding has made the Walt Disney Company an ideal candidate to incorporate thought leadership strategies to reinvent the guest experience. The company needs to come up with thoughtful solutions to the overcrowding problem. One of the most magical companies in the world is Walt Disney. The word magic and Disney is almost synonymous. Disneyland, Walt Disney, and their characters have given so much happiness in the last few decades that people have forgotten that they are also a profit making organization. It is but natural that fans like us carry out an internal analysis or SWOT analysis of Walt Disney to find out what makes the company tick and keep going. The Walt Disney Company has many strengths, but the two strengths that truly stand out from among the rest are the company has solid theme park business and it has cash reserves in surplus. The theme park business of the Walt Disney Company is flourishing. The company owns the highest revenue generating theme parks in the world, Disneyland. With an improving economy and new attractions, both Disney World in Orlando, Florida, and Disneyland in Anaheim, California, have posted record attendance for each of the last 3 fiscal years, as well as for the spring quarter that ended in June 2015. In the first 9 months of the fiscal year ended in September 2015, Disney's Parks and Resorts revenue grew 6% to $11.8 billion, and operating income was up 16% to $2.3 billion. Since the theme park business has been generating impressive income for the company, this strength is therefore an appropriate consideration for thought leadership strategy. For the first time in the 60 years since Disneyland opened, Walt Disney Company is considering switching to demand-based pricing at its domestic parks, where tickets would cost less or provide added benefits on slower days, and cost extra or come with more restrictions on dates when there tend to be too many people. What the company hopes to achieve is to spread out attendance throughout the year so it can accommodate demand. Maintaining the magic at its theme parks is becoming increasingly challenging for Disney amid crowds drawn by new attractions and the popularity of franchises like Frozen and Star Wars. Long lines and gate closures, which Disney parks sometimes have to implement on the busiest days, lead to unhappy visitors, exactly what the leaders of the happiest place on earth want to avoid. Although Disney has done well in raising overall prices, it did not fully solve the problem of overcrowding. With demand based pricing, the company is now seeking to raise attendance during slower times of the year to keep people happy. In addition, for Disney's brand, keeping park vacations within the reach of middle class families is also important. What happens when your cash inflow is high and it rarely drops? Disney is a company known to have a cash surplus. In 2015 alone, there were lots of construction projects going on at Disney World. Several new things are also scheduled to be completed and open in 2016 and beyond. In spring this year, the Rivers of Light at Animal Kingdom and the Frozen ride at Epcot will open. The Avatar Land is scheduled to open in 2017, with the Star Wars Land to open in 2018. All these projects, when completed, will bring in more crowds at the theme parks. The strength of having surplus cash reserves, therefore, is also an appropriate consideration for a thought leadership strategy. The theme parks and resorts segment is the best fit for a thought leadership strategy. Besides generating high revenues for the company, it is also a good place to start surveying the Disney park visitors to gauge their reactions to different variable pricing options. Disney has been quietly surveying annual pass holders and other visitors about the new dynamic pricing structure that would tie single and multi-day tickets to specific dates. Tickets would cost more to visit on busier days, such as the holidays. A dynamic pricing structure would give Disney another tool with which to fight overcrowding during the holidays and summer. With the new demand-based pricing, some customers will be directly benefited. Different prices for different days might convince some budget-conscious visitors to come to the park on less busy days, creating better distribution of visitors between peak and non-peak periods. Dynamic pricing also allows Disney to be more aggressive about raising its prices in a way that doesn't put the burden of those increases on all visitors equally. If the peak pricing strategy goes well, Disney might be able to reduce the crowds, create a world-class experience for everyone, and making more people happy. The thought leadership strategy of the demand-based pricing embraces both the vision and mission of the company. The overcrowding problem is quite complicated. Fixing it through the new pricing strategy means possibly alienating some of Disneyland's biggest fans. But finding a solution likely means finding some balance. Walt Disney had wanted all families to be able to spend time together in a fun atmosphere and be able to afford it. But the price hikes have made the theme parks into playgrounds for the rich and their kids. The demand-based pricing, however, would be able to retool the situation. If you really want to visit during the busiest times of the year, Disney will take advantage of that, and you will pay more to visit during those high demand periods, just like you pay more for airline tickets. But if you have some flexibility and can visit when the parks aren't so crowded, Disney won't hit you as hard in the pocketbook, allowing you to get what might be a better deal. The mission of the Walt Disney Company is to be one of the world's leading producers and providers of entertainment and information. Using our portfolio of brands to differentiate our content, services, and consumer products, we seek to develop the most creative, innovative, and profitable entertainment experiences and related products in the world. With demand-based pricing, the company is committed to ensuring all the guests have a magical experience by providing them the creative and innovative entertainment at a more affordable price. In 2014, Disney's revenues were at $48.4 billion and earnings per share at $4. Revenues at the studio entertainment jumped 18%, reaping the benefits from the success of Guardians of the Galaxy and Maleficent. Theme parks continued to show steady growth in the US. This can be attributed to a 6% growth in guest spending and 4% jump in attendance at the theme parks. The company said that the My Magic Plus new ticketing system had a positive contribution to the operating income and trends look encouraging. Overall, the revenue distribution of Disney in fiscal year 2014 is as follows: media networks at 43%, parks at 31%, studio entertainment at 15%, consumer products at 8%, and interactive media at 3%. In 2015, Disney's revenues were at $52 billion and earnings per share at $4.59. The earnings were primarily driven by significant growth in the consumer products segment. The segment growth was led by higher merchandise sales for Frozen. The movie has been a stellar success for Disney. Theme parks also benefited from higher attendance and guest spending. This can be attributed to 6% volume growth and a 4% increase in guest spending at the US parks. Looking at the international parks, volume was up 3% while average guest spending increased 5%. The theme parks have been growing steadily for Disney over the past few years, and this trend is expected to continue in the near term as well as in the long run, driven by continued growth in attendance and guest spending amid an economic recovery and the introduction of new rides that Disney brings into its parks. Overall, the revenue distribution in fiscal year 2015 is as follows: Media Networks at 44%, Parks and Resorts at 31%, Studio Entertainment at 14%, Consumer Products at 9%, Interactive Media at 2%. The Boston Matrix was developed by the management consultants at the Boston Consulting Group in the early 1970s. The matrix was designed to help managers at large corporations to decide which business units they should invest in. The cash cow of the Boston Matrix is high market share but low growth rate. The revenue distribution slides of fiscal year 2014 and 2015 show us that Media Networks is the most profitable asset of the Walt Disney Company by a wide margin. It has a high market share but a low growth rate. In 2015, the segment operating income was up only 3% due to the higher programming costs at ESPN, driven by contractual rate increases for some of the sporting events, including the NFL franchise. Stars is the unit with a high market share and high growth rate. Parks and Resorts is the star of Walt Disney Company because they have the second highest market share with the third highest growth in 2015. In 2015, the operating income of this segment jumped 20%. The new attractions will boost attendance at the theme parks and drive growth in the coming years. Studio Entertainment can also be considered a star for Walt Disney. In 2015, its operating income grew by 33%. Question marks is the low market share and high growth rate segment. The question marks for Walt Disney Company is the consumer products. This segment has one of the lowest percent growth at 9%, but its operating income surged 46% in 2015. There was a massive demand for Frozen merchandise in 2014. According to the market research firm NPD Group, Frozen was also the number one toy brand for 2014. Dogs consists of low market share and low growth rate. This is the interactive media segment. It has the lowest market share, which shrank by 1% in 2015. Stars represent the ideal combination for a company: high market share in a fast-growing industry, two elements which generate cash and further opportunities. With the Boston Matrix analysis, it further suggests that the company needs to come up with a thought leadership strategy to resolve the overcrowding problem before the segment will lose competition to other rival parks, such as the Universal Studio. Disney's intention with the demand-based pricing strategy is to give more consumers access to the park rather than boost Disney profits, since off season prices would make it more affordable for lower income consumers. Despite the good intention, there are also concerns with the demand based pricing strategy because it favors those with more disposable income, and those with higher incomes can also arguably enjoy more flexibility when it comes to dates to go to the park. For example, peak pricing would presumably be in effect during times like Christmas when kids are off from school, while lower income consumers could be restricted to less convenient times. There are other ideas besides the demand based pricing strategy to battle the crowds. One option would be to reduce the maximum capacity of the park. What's the point of getting into the park if you cannot do anything? This will require Disney to be okay with potentially reducing revenue by lowering the amount of ticket sales for the day. The revenue reduction could be offset in the long run by happier people purchasing more items inside the parks and a rise in annual pass sales from locals. An overhaul of the annual pass system at the same time could also help. For example, increasing the blackout dates of all the non premium passes, or to try something new, move to a location based blackout system. Under this system, blackouts would be based on not only on days but also on zip codes. Pass holders would only be able to use their passes on days where their zip code was chosen and that was not blacked out, with the higher level passes having less blackout dates and more guaranteed zip code selection days per month. This would only apply to non premium annual pass holders, thereby not affecting vacationers buying individual tickets. Disneyland faces the serious challenge of overcrowding, of which Walt Disney most likely could not have anticipated in his park's humble early days. No one single solution can solve a problem of this magnitude. Fine tuning the right amount of some solutions may come down to trial and error. One combination could include slightly raising ticket prices while at the same time implementing more restrictions on annual passes, and finally, reducing the overall maximum capacity of the parks. Although this task is a formidable one, it is essential to return Disneyland to being the happiest place on earth.